The rain drummed against the windshield of my Toyota Camry as I sat in the hotel parking lot, watching the glass doors of the Marriott downtown. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Chen, the private investigator I'd hired 3 weeks ago. Subject exiting with male companion. Getting photos now. I didn't need to look up to know what I'd see. Lauren emerged first, her auburn hair catching the lobby lights as she adjusted her coat, the black one I'd bought her for Christmas. Behind her, David Martinez straightened his tie, that same nervous gesture he'd made during our company barbecue last summer when he'd complimented Lauren's dress a little too enthusiastically. This wasn't the moment of discovery. That had come 6 weeks ago when I'd found the credit card statement buried in Lauren's purse, charges for lingerie I'd never seen, and restaurants we'd never visited together. This wasn't even the moment of confirmation. That had happened when I'd installed the voice recorder in her car and heard her laughing about how Mark's so frigging clueless while she described their afternoon rendezvous. This was the moment of documentation. I pulled out my phone and opened the app connected to the dash cam I'd installed in Lauren's BMW. The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when she'd told me she was at her sister's house. I scrolled through the footage, Lauren and David entering the hotel lobby, his hand on the small of her back in that possessive way I used to touch her. My chest should have been tight with betrayal. My hands should have been shaking with rage. Instead, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction as I added this evidence to the growing file on my laptop. Hotel receipts dating back 4 months. Credit card statements showing purchases at Victoria's Secret, followed by charges at the same hotels. Text messages recovered from her old phone when she'd carelessly thrown it in the junk drawer after getting her upgrade. The emotional devastation had died 3 weeks ago. What remained was something more dangerous: methodical planning. Sarah's next text included 3 photos. Lauren and David embracing outside the hotel, sharing a kiss that lasted long enough to be captured from multiple angles, and David's hand slipping something into Lauren's coat pocket before they separated. A room key, most likely. He'd done this before. I started the engine and drove home to our house in Westfield, the house that Lauren thought she'd taken the divorce she didn't know was coming. The house where she'd been playing the role of devoted wife while having an affair with her boss in downtown hotels. The garage door opened with its familiar rumble, and I parked next to Lauren's empty BMW. She wouldn't be home for another hour, just enough time to establish her alibi with whatever lies she'd crafted about her sister's fictional crisis or her mother's made-up doctor's appointment. Inside, I poured myself a scotch and sat at the kitchen island, opening my laptop to review the evidence file I'd been building. Sarah had been thorough, more thorough than I'd expected when I'd hired her. The woman was a former police detective with 20 years of experience in fraud investigation, and she'd approached Lauren's affair like a complex white-collar crime. Because it was. The corporate expense reports showed David had been billing the company for these hotel stays, marking them as client meetings. The restaurants where they'd eaten were also charged to the company card. Lauren had been receiving gifts purchased with company funds, jewelry, expensive dinners, even a weekend getaway to Cape Cod that David had listed as a business conference. My phone buzzed with another message from Sarah. Financial records show subject has been moving money from joint accounts to personal account over past 3 months. $47,000 total. I pulled up our bank statements on my laptop. There they were. Transfers Lauren had made to her personal checking account. Small amounts at first, then increasingly larger sums. Money she'd been squirreling away for what she probably thought would be her new life with David. The front door opened at exactly 5:23 p.m. Lauren's heels clicked against the hardwood floor as she entered the kitchen, humming something I didn't recognize. She kissed my cheek, the same kiss she'd given David in the hotel parking lot, and began pulling vegetables from the refrigerator. "How was your day?" I asked, watching her performance of domesticity. "Oh, you know how it is with Mom," she said, not looking at me as she began chopping carrots. "She's been so anxious about the test results. I spent most of the afternoon just sitting with her, trying to keep her calm." Her mother had died 2 years ago. "That's good of you," I said, taking another sip of scotch. I'm sure she appreciates having you there. Lauren glanced at me, something flickering in her eyes. Of course she does. That's what family does, right? We take care of each other. I watched her move around the kitchen. This woman I'd married 7 years ago. This woman who'd stood in front of our friends and family and promised to love and honor me. The woman who'd been withdrawing our money, having an affair with her boss, and lying to my face for months. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel pain watching her. I felt power. I've been thinking, I said, closing the laptop. Maybe we should take a vacation. Just the two of us. Get away from all the stress. Lauren's knife paused mid-chop. A vacation? Now? Mark, you know I can't leave Mom when she's going through this. Right, I said. Of course not. Family first. She resumed chopping, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. She was wondering if I suspected something, if this was a test. It was, but not the kind she thought. I was testing my own capacity for patience. For 3 more days, I would watch her lie, watch her pretend, watch her believe she was in control of this situation. For 3 more days, I would let her think she was the predator and I was the prey. After that, Lauren would learn what it meant to be prey. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening while Lauren was making her famous chicken piccata, the same dish she'd made for our first anniversary. I sat at the kitchen table, watching her perform this ritual of fake domesticity, and decided to test the boundaries of her deception. I drove downtown today, I said casually, cutting into the chicken. Had to pick up some documents from the law office. Traffic was terrible near the Marriott. Lauren's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Oh? I didn't know you had business downtown. Patricia Williams' office is just a few blocks from there. You know, the divorce attorney who handled the Johnson case for the firm, I continued, watching her carefully. Interesting woman. Very thorough. The color drained from Lauren's face, but she recovered quickly. Why would you need to see a divorce attorney? Research for a client, I lied smoothly. But while I was there, I could have sworn I saw your car in the Marriott parking lot. Silver BMW, right? Same license plate? Lauren set down her fork. You're mistaken. I told you I was at Mom's house all afternoon. Right, I said. But your mom died 2 years ago, Lauren. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I could see the calculations happening behind her eyes. How much I knew, how much I could prove, how much she could still deny. I meant my sister, she said finally. You know what I meant. Do I? I leaned back in my chair. Because I called Jenny this morning. She said she hasn't seen you in 3 weeks. Lauren's mask didn't slip. It shattered. The concerned wife, the devoted family member, the woman who'd been humming while cooking dinner disappeared, replaced by someone cold and calculating. You're checking up on me now? Her voice was arctic. Calling my family? Tracking my car? I'm trying to understand why my wife has been lying to me for months. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to understand? Fine. I'll help you understand. Lauren stood up, pacing to the kitchen window. When she turned back, her face was transformed, not by guilt or shame, but by something that looked almost like relief. Yes, I've been seeing David. Yes, I've been lying to you. And do you know why? She crossed her arms. Because you're weak, Mark. You're pathetic. You're the kind of man who lets his wife walk all over him and then checks up on her like some sad, suspicious little boy. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my expression neutral. How long? 6 months, she said. 6 months of David having me the way you never could. 6 months of feeling like a woman instead of a nursemaid to your fragile ego. She was trying to hurt me, to break me down, to make me the villain in this story. But I'd heard these words before. in the recordings from her car, in the conversations Sarah had documented, in the cruel laughter she'd shared with David about my supposed inadequacies. "And now what?" I asked. Lauren's smile was predatory. "Now you get to choose. You can stay married to me, shut your mouth about David, and accept that I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it. Or," she paused for effect, "I'll divorce you. I'll take the house, the savings, the cars. I'll tell everyone you were abusive, that you forced me to look elsewhere for affection. I'll destroy your reputation, your career, everything you think you've built." She moved closer, leaning over the table. "Because that's what happens to weak men who can't keep their wives satisfied. They lose everything." I looked at her, really looked at her. This wasn't the woman I'd married. This was someone who'd been hiding behind a mask for years, someone who'd been calculating and manipulating and waiting for the right moment to reveal her true nature. I stood up, walking to the kitchen sink. "You think I love you too much to fight back." "I think you're too pathetic to fight back," she replied. I turned around, and for the first time in this conversation, I smiled. "Is that really what you want, Lauren? A divorce?" Something in my tone unsettled her. The confidence flickered in her eyes. "I want you to know your place. I want you to understand how this is going to work from now on." "And if I choose the divorce?" "Then you'll lose everything. I'll make sure of it," she answered. I nodded slowly. "I need some time to think about this." Lauren relaxed, the predator sensing victory. "Of course you do. Take all the time you need." 3 days, I said. "Give me 3 days to decide." She laughed. 3 days? Mark, this isn't a business negotiation. This is your life we're talking about. 3 days, I repeated. "Then I'll give you my answer." Lauren shrugged. "Fine. 3 days. But don't think you're going to find some magic solution. You're going to realize that you need me more than I need you, and then you're going to accept the new rules." She kissed my forehead, a gesture of condescension rather than affection. "I'm going to take a bath. Clean up the dishes, would you?" I watched her walk away, this woman who thought she'd just delivered a killing blow. She'd miscalculated badly. I didn't need 3 days to think about my decision. I'd made it weeks ago when I'd first hired Sarah Chen. I needed 3 days to execute. The next 72 hours unfolded like a chess game where only one player could see the board. While Lauren went about her normal routine, working late with David, making phone calls to friends about marriage problems, even having the audacity to shop for new lingerie with our joint credit card, I was moving pieces she couldn't even see. Friday morning, I met with Patricia Williams at her law office. Patricia was a shark in an expensive suit, a woman who'd built her reputation on high-conflict divorces and asset protection. She'd been preparing for this meeting for 3 weeks. "The evidence is overwhelming," she said, spreading documents across her conference table. "Adultery, financial misconduct, and this." She played a recording from Lauren's car, my wife's voice, clear and cruel, describing how she planned to take Mark for everything he's worth and make him pay for being such a weakling. "The joint accounts?" I asked. "Frozen as of this morning. Emergency motion based on evidence of financial misconduct," Patricia replied with a cold smile. "She'll find out when she tries to access them later today." "And the house?" "Complicated, but we have options. The recordings of her admitting to financial planning for the divorce, combined with the evidence of her moving money without your knowledge, gives us grounds for asset protection. Plus, there's this." She handed me a folder. "Your wife has been encouraging David to embezzle company funds. The hotels, the restaurants, the gifts, all charged to his corporate account and classified as business expenses." I opened the folder. Sarah Chen had been thorough. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, expense reports, all showing a pattern of corporate fraud that implicated both Lauren and David. "David's wife doesn't know yet," Patricia continued, But she will. Today. How? I asked. Anonymous tip to the company's ethics hotline, complete with documentation. David will be terminated before the weekend, and his wife will have grounds for divorce that'll leave him with nothing. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. His wife is innocent in this. His wife is married to a man who's been stealing from her family's company to fund his affair with your wife. She deserves to know, Patricia said, leaning forward. Mark, you need to understand something. Your wife declared war on you. She's been planning your destruction for months. I'm simply giving you the tools to fight back. The meeting continued for 2 hours. Patricia outlined the legal strategy, the financial protections, the evidence packets that would be submitted to the court. By the time I left her office, Lauren's fate was sealed, even if she didn't know it yet. Saturday, I focused on the social battlefield. Lauren had always been the extrovert in our marriage, the one who maintained friendships and family relationships. She thought that gave her power, that people would naturally take her side in a divorce. She was wrong. I called her sister Jenny first. I'm worried about Lauren, I said. She's been so distant lately, working late, spending money we don't have. I think she might be having some kind of breakdown. Jenny, who'd always been protective of Lauren, was immediately concerned. What kind of breakdown? I don't know. Paranoia, maybe? She's been accusing me of checking up on her, getting angry when I ask simple questions about her day. Yesterday, she told me she was visiting your mother. Mom's been dead for 2 years, she replied. I know. That's what scares me. The conversation continued for 20 minutes. By the end, Jenny was convinced that Lauren was having psychological problems and that I was the concerned husband trying to help. When the truth came out, Jenny would remember this conversation and feel guilty for missing the signs. I made similar calls to Lauren's college friends, her co-workers, even her former boss. Not spreading gossip, that would have been suspicious. Just planting seeds of concern, establishing myself as the worried husband, dealing with a wife who was acting strange and pulling away from everyone who loved her. The beauty of this strategy was that it was partially true. Lauren had been distant, secretive, hostile. When people learned about the affair, they would remember these conversations and think, oh, that's why Mark was so worried. Sunday, I focused on David. This was the riskiest part of the plan because it required direct action that could be traced back to me. I couldn't be directly involved in his destruction. That would make me legally liable. But I could create the conditions for his self-destruction. Sarah had provided me with David's home address and his wife's social media profiles. Maria Martinez was active on Instagram, posting regularly about her family, her work at the nonprofit foundation, and her volunteer activities. She was also connected to several board members of the company where David worked, the company her family had helped establish. I created a fake Instagram account and began following Maria's posts, occasionally liking her photos or commenting positively on her foundation work. Nothing suspicious, just another supporter of her causes. Over the course of several weeks, I'd built up a small digital relationship with her. Now it was time to leverage that relationship. I sent Maria a private message. Hi, Maria. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I've been following your foundation work and I'm really impressed by your dedication to family values. I'm struggling with something and I'm not sure who to talk to. I recently discovered that my wife has been having an affair with her boss, and I found evidence that he's been using company resources to fund their relationship. I don't know if I should say something or just focus on my own divorce. I know you're involved with the business community and I wondered if you had any advice. I attached a few pieces of evidence. Hotel receipts showing David's corporate card, restaurant charges for 2 people when he was supposed to be in solo business meetings, and a photo of David and Lauren together that could have been taken by anyone. Maria's response came within an hour. I'm so sorry you're going through this. This is completely unacceptable behavior, especially the misuse of company resources. Would you be willing to share this information with the appropriate authorities? This kind of conduct reflects poorly on all of us in the business community. I waited 2 hours before responding. I appreciate your advice. I think you're right that this kind of behavior needs to be reported. I'll submit everything to the company's ethics hotline tomorrow. But I wouldn't need to. Maria would handle that herself. She'd recognized her own husband in the evidence, and she'd connected the dots about the company being her family's business. By Monday morning, David would be facing termination, divorce, and potential criminal charges for embezzlement. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I wasn't destroying David. He'd destroyed himself through his choices. I was simply ensuring that the right people had the right information at the right time. Monday morning, I woke up early and made coffee. Lauren was still asleep, exhausted from her weekend activities. I didn't know what she'd been doing, and I didn't care. In 18 hours, she'd discover that her carefully constructed life was collapsing around her. I sat at the kitchen table, reviewing the evidence file one more time. Photographs, recordings, financial documents, witness statements, everything Patricia would need to demolish Lauren in court. Everything that would prove she'd been planning my destruction while pretending to love me. The emotional weight of what I was about to do settled on my shoulders. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. Lauren had tried to destroy an innocent man who'd loved her, and she'd done it with calculation and cruelty. She'd shown no remorse, no guilt, no recognition that her actions would devastate someone who'd trusted her completely. At 7:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Subject's male companion terminated from employment this morning. Security escorted him from building. Wife filed for divorce at 8 a.m. David's world was ending. In a few hours, Lauren's would follow. I looked at the woman sleeping upstairs, this person who'd threatened to destroy my reputation, steal my assets, and leave me with nothing. She thought she was the predator in this story. She was about to learn otherwise. Tuesday evening, Lauren came home from work pale and shaken. She'd obviously heard about David's termination, but she didn't know the full scope of what was happening. Not yet. "We need to talk," I said, gesturing to the dining room table where I'd laid out manila folders in neat rows. "Mark, I don't know what you think you know, but—" "Sit down, Lauren." Something in my tone made her comply. She sat across from me, her eyes darting to the folders with growing apprehension. "3 days ago, you gave me an ultimatum," I said. "You told me I could either accept your affair and the new rules of our marriage, or you'd divorce me and take everything. You assumed I was weak. You assumed I was trapped. You assumed I had no choice but to submit to your demands." I opened the first folder and pushed it across the table. Hotel receipts. 17 different dates over the past 6 months. Each one corresponds to a day you told me you were somewhere else. Lauren's face went white as she flipped through the receipts. "How did you—" The second folder contains financial records. $47,000 transferred from our joint accounts to your personal checking account without my knowledge or consent. I opened the second folder. That's called financial misconduct in divorce proceedings. Lauren's hands shook as she examined the bank statements. "This is illegal. You can't spy on me like this." The third folder contains photographs. I didn't need to open it. You and David. Multiple locations, multiple dates. The quality is quite good. My private investigator is very professional. "Private investigator?" Lauren's voice cracked. "Sarah Chen. 20 years with the police department specializing in fraud investigation. She's been documenting your affair for a month." I leaned forward. "Did you know David was charging your hotel stays to his corporate account? That he was embezzling from his wife's family business to fund your relationship?" Lauren stared at me as if I'd become a stranger. "What are you talking about?" "David was fired yesterday morning. His wife filed for divorce before noon. The company is considering criminal charges for embezzlement." I opened the fourth folder. This contains copies of all the evidence I provided to the company's ethics board and to Maria Martinez personally. You destroyed his marriage? I didn't destroy anything. I simply made sure the right people had accurate information about how their money was being spent. Lauren stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. You have no idea what you've done. David has children. He has a family. He had a family. He chose to risk it for 6 months of affair with my wife. I remained seated, calm. Just like you chose to risk our marriage for the same thing. She whirled around, and I saw a flash of the woman who'd delivered the ultimatum 3 days ago. You're not going to destroy me like you destroyed him. I'm not destroying you, Lauren. I'm simply revealing who you really are. The courts will see this as obsessive behavior, hiring private investigators, spying on your wife. The courts will see evidence of adultery, financial misconduct, and attempted marital fraud. I opened the final folder. This contains recordings from your car. Your voice describing how you plan to take me for everything I'm worth and make me pay for being such a frigging weakling. Lauren's remaining composure cracked. Those recordings are illegal. The car is registered in my name. I have every right to install security equipment in my own vehicle. I stood up. The divorce papers were filed this morning. You've already been served at your office. I believe security escorted the process server to your desk. You son of a bitch. The joint accounts are frozen. The house is under court protection pending asset division. Your credit cards have been canceled. I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up an envelope. These are the keys to your BMW. Since it's registered in my name and you're no longer an authorized driver, I'll need them back. Lauren's face cycled through disbelief, rage, and finally, desperation. Mark, please, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Fix this? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean the affair you're continuing? The money you've been stealing? The psychological abuse you've been inflicting? Which part would you like to fix first? I'll end it with David. David's life is over. His wife took the kids yesterday. He's facing criminal charges. There's nothing left to end. Lauren tried a different approach. I was confused. I was having a midlife crisis. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking clearly enough to move nearly $50,000 out of our joint accounts. You were thinking clearly enough to plan my financial destruction. You were thinking clearly enough to threaten to destroy my reputation if I didn't submit to your demands. I walked to the front door and opened it. You have 1 hour to pack whatever you can carry. After that, you're trespassing. You can't throw me out of my own house! This isn't your house anymore. It's under court protection, and I have a restraining order based on your threats of violence and financial abuse. Lauren's desperation turned to rage. She grabbed a vase from the side table and hurled it at me. I stepped aside and let it shatter against the wall. Thank you, I said. The security cameras captured that. It'll be useful in court. She lunged at me, fingernails aimed at my face. I caught her wrists easily. I'd been expecting this too. The security system was recording everything. Let me go, she screamed. I already have. I released her wrists and stepped back. You're free, Lauren. Free to live with the consequences of your choices. For the first time, she seemed to understand the full scope of what was happening. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore, I replied. I don't have any money. You have $47,000 in your personal account. That should last a while if you're careful. That money was for our future, she replied. No, I said quietly. That money was for your future. The future where you divorced me and took everything I'd worked for. The future where you destroyed my reputation and left me with nothing. I looked at her, really looked at her. The future where you thought you'd won. Lauren collapsed onto the couch, the fight going out of her. I don't understand how this happened. 3 days ago, I had everything under control. 3 days ago, you thought you were the predator. You thought I was weak, trapped, and stupid. You thought you could manipulate me into accepting your affair and your abuse. I sat down across from her. You were wrong about everything. I never meant for it to go this far, she answered. Yes, you did. You planned every step of my destruction. You just didn't plan for me to fight back. Lauren looked around the house we'd shared for 7 years, the life we'd built together, the future she'd thought she could control. What happens now? Now you pack your things and leave. Tomorrow, your lawyer will receive the evidence file. Next week, we'll begin divorce proceedings. In 6 months, you'll be officially free to build whatever life you can with whatever reputation you have left. And you? She asked. I stood up. I'll be free too. Free from a marriage based on lies. Free from a woman who saw me as a victim to be exploited. Free from someone who mistake my kindness for weakness. Lauren looked at me with something approaching respect for the first time in months. I underestimated you. Yes, I said. You did. She went upstairs to pack, and I sat in the living room, listening to the sounds of her dismantling her life. Drawers opening and closing, closet doors slamming, the occasional sob of recognition as she realized what she'd lost. An hour later, she stood at the front door with 2 suitcases, looking like a stranger. The confident woman who'd delivered the ultimatum was gone. The cruel woman who'd planned my destruction was gone. What remained was someone broken by the weight of her own choices. Mark, she said quietly, I'm sorry. I know, I replied, but sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you tried to destroy someone who loved you. She nodded and walked to her car, the taxi I'd called, since she could no longer drive the BMW. I watched her load her suitcases, watched her look back at the house one last time, watched her drive away into the darkness. Then I closed the door, poured myself a scotch, and sat in the silence of my empty house. The silence of victory. The silence of justice. The silence of a man who'd refused to be a victim. 6 months later, I sat in my new apartment's living room, watching the news coverage of David Martinez's sentencing. 18 months in federal prison for embezzlement, plus restitution that would keep him in debt for the rest of his life. His ex-wife had been granted full custody of their children and a divorce settlement that left him with nothing. The reporter mentioned that Martinez had been attacked outside a downtown bar 3 months ago, suffering a broken nose and several cracked ribs. The attackers were never found, though witnesses described them as 3 men who'd called him a cheating bastard before the beating began. I'd had nothing to do with the attack. I was at a client dinner that night with receipts and witnesses to prove it, but I felt no sympathy for David. Some might say he got what he deserved. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. Saw the news, justice served. Sarah had become more than just my private investigator. She'd become a friend and mentor. She'd taught me how to read people, how to spot lies, how to protect myself from manipulation. Most importantly, she'd shown me how to trust my instincts again. Indeed, I texted back. Dinner tomorrow? I want to show you the photos from the sailing trip. Absolutely. Looking forward to meeting Jessica. Jessica. The woman who'd entered my life 4 months ago, who knew my story and respected the man I'd become. She'd been through her own betrayal, a husband who'd gambled away their house while she was undergoing cancer treatment, and she understood that sometimes the only way to heal is to fight back. We'd met at a divorce support group, though neither of us had needed much support by then. We'd both moved past victimhood into something stronger. Our relationship wasn't built on need or desperation, but on mutual respect and genuine attraction. My new apartment was smaller than the house I'd shared with Lauren, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every book, every photograph reflected my choices, my values, my new life. The walls were decorated with pictures from my travels, trips to Maine, Vermont, the Outer Banks, all the places Lauren had never wanted to visit. I'd lost weight, learned to cook, taken up sailing. I'd reconnected with friends Lauren had driven away through her subtle manipulations and passive-aggressive comments. I'd discovered that I was actually quite good at living alone, that I didn't need someone else to validate my existence. The divorce had been finalized 2 months ago. Lauren had tried to fight the asset division, but the evidence was overwhelming. She'd ended up with her personal belongings, her car, and about $30,000 after legal fees. I'd kept the house, most of the investments, and my retirement accounts. Patricia Williams had been ruthless in court, presenting evidence of Lauren's financial misconduct, adultery, and attempted marital fraud. Lauren's lawyer had tried to argue that I'd been obsessive and controlling, but the recordings of Lauren's own words had destroyed that defense. "Mrs. Donovan," Patricia had said during the final hearing, "you've admitted to planning your husband's financial destruction. You've admitted to moving money without his knowledge. You've admitted to a 6-month affair. Are you seriously asking this court to believe that you're the victim in this situation?" Lauren had no answer. The judge had been particularly harsh about the financial misconduct. "Marriage is a partnership based on trust," he'd said. "When one partner systematically violates that trust while planning the other's destruction, the court cannot ignore such behavior." I'd felt no triumph in that moment, only closure. The man Lauren had tried to destroy was gone, replaced by someone who knew his own worth and wouldn't accept less than he deserved. Lauren had tried to contact me several times since the divorce. Letters, emails, even showing up at my office once. Her messages followed a predictable pattern: anger, bargaining, false apologies, and finally, pathetic attempts at reconciliation. She'd been forced to move 3 times in 6 months. First to a small apartment across town, then to a cheaper place in a worse neighborhood, then to a studio apartment in a complex that looked like a refuge for the recently divorced. Her professional reputation had been destroyed along with David's. Word had spread quickly through their industry about the affair and the embezzlement. The last time she'd tried to contact me, she'd been working part-time at a retail store in the mall. I'd seen her there while shopping with Jessica, hunched over a register, wearing a name tag that read Associate. She'd looked up when she heard my voice, and for a moment, our eyes had met across the store. I'd felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just nothing. The woman who'd once had the power to hurt me had become a stranger, someone from a past life that no longer affected my present. Tonight, I was taking Jessica to dinner at a new restaurant downtown. She'd been to a conference in Chicago all week, and I'd missed her more than I'd expected. That was new for me, allowing myself to miss someone, to be vulnerable again, to trust that someone might actually care about my well-being. I'd learned the difference between love and neediness, between partnership and dependency. My marriage to Lauren had been based on fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of losing someone who'd never really been mine to begin with. What I had with Jessica was different. It was based on choice, on mutual respect, on the recognition that we were both complete people who chose to share our lives rather than people who needed each other to feel whole. My phone rang. Jessica's name appeared on the screen. "Hey," I said, answering on the first ring. "Hey yourself, I just landed. Are you ready for the best seafood in the city?" "I'm ready for whatever you want to do." "That's dangerous talk," she laughed. "I might take you up on that." "I hope you do." After we hung up, I looked around my apartment, at the life I'd built from the wreckage of my marriage. Lauren had tried to destroy me, but instead she'd given me something valuable, the knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. I was no longer the man who'd sat in his car outside the Marriott, documenting his wife's betrayal. I was no longer the man who'd been threatened and manipulated into submission. I was someone new, someone who'd learned that the greatest victory isn't making your enemy suffer, it's becoming someone they can never touch again. 1 year after the divorce, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized Lauren's handwriting immediately. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of me. "Mark, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to try one more time. I've been forced to move again, this time to Portland, Oregon. My parents won't speak to me anymore. Jenny won't take my calls. I can't find work in our industry because everyone knows about David and the embezzlement. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices, but I've learned from them. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did. The therapist says I was acting out of fear, that I was trying to control you because I was afraid of losing you. I know that doesn't excuse anything, but I want you to understand that I never meant for things to go so far. I'm not asking you to take me back. I know that's impossible. But maybe we could talk. Maybe you could help me understand how to move forward? I'm working at a coffee shop now, barely making rent. David's wife made sure I can't get hired anywhere decent. I feel like I'm being punished forever for mistakes I made when I wasn't thinking clearly. I see couples sometimes, happy couples, and I remember what we used to have, before everything went wrong, before I ruined it. I miss that. I miss you. Not the man you became during the divorce. That man terrified me. But the man you were before. The kind man. The forgiving man. Maybe if we could just talk, we could find some way to heal from this. Some way to move forward that doesn't leave me with nothing. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm so sorry for everything. Lauren. I read the letter twice, then carried it to the fireplace in my living room. Jessica was upstairs getting ready for dinner. We'd been living together for 3 months now, and tonight I was planning to propose. The ring was hidden in my sock drawer, a simple diamond solitaire that matched her practical nature and genuine beauty. I struck a match and held it to the corner of Lauren's letter. The paper caught fire immediately, the ink dissolving into ash as the flames consumed her words. As I watched it burn, I thought about the woman who'd written it. She still didn't understand. Even now, a year later, she thought this was about forgiveness, about healing, about moving forward together. She thought she could appeal to the kind man she remembered, the man who'd loved her unconditionally. That man was dead. She'd killed him the day she'd delivered her ultimatum, the day she'd revealed her true nature, the day she'd shown me that 7 years of marriage had been built on manipulation and lies. The woman upstairs putting on her earrings knew the real me, the man who'd emerged from the ashes of his destroyed marriage. She loved that man, not some memory of who I used to be. She respected my strength, not my willingness to be victimized. Lauren's letter mentioned David's wife making sure she couldn't find work. That was Maria Martinez, a woman who'd discovered that her husband had been stealing from her family's company to fund his affair. Maria had used her connections in the business community to ensure that both Lauren and David faced professional consequences for their actions. She'd protected other families from the kind of betrayal she'd experienced. Some might call that vindictive. I called it justice. The last of Lauren's letter crumbled into ash. I stirred the remains with the poker, making sure nothing legible remained. Then I swept the ashes into the trash and washed my hands. "Almost ready?" Jessica called from upstairs. "Almost," I called back, checking my reflection in the mirror. The man looking back at me was someone I recognized, someone I respected, someone who'd learned that the greatest victory isn't making your enemies suffer, but becoming someone they can never touch again. I thought about Lauren in her coffee shop in Portland, still believing that she was the victim of circumstances beyond her control, still thinking that someone else was responsible for her situation, still waiting for rescue from the consequences of her choices. She would wait forever. Tonight, I would propose to a woman who'd never mistake my kindness for weakness, who'd never see my love as a tool for manipulation. Tonight, I would continue building a life based on truth, respect, and genuine partnership. The man Lauren had tried to destroy was gone. What remained was someone stronger, wiser, and completely beyond her reach. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's success. Someone who'd learned that sometimes when everything burns down, what rises from the ashes is better than what came before. I checked the ring box one more time, then headed upstairs to the woman who loved the man I'd become, not the man I used to be. Behind me, the last traces of Lauren's letter disappeared into ash and memory. I never looked back. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.